It's just different.
Hopeless at one point and then having an opportunity to make you go harder, make you get in that booth and just really express that hopelessness. Like, man, y'all don't understand. This is like, you know what I mean? You dig from a different place. That bottom of your soul, that pit, homie, where you felt like the shit was, you know what I'm saying? You always wanted, but it looked like it was just not gonna happen.
Shit, in your mind it ain't gonna happen, shit, it probably won't. I took some risks, some people probably won't. That's how we're grateful for the fruits of all my labor. Hard to live and know you sick, I'd rather be with my creator, thinking time's up.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Four Insight Podcast. It's your host, Mike Obi.
It's your boy London Ogletree back for some more gems, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing A-okay, my brother. Just
Okay.
another week, busy life as always, but getting better day by day. What's going on with you?
Same here. Can't say there's, like I told you, not no really update on my life, but just the same thing with working out. And I will say this bulk. A lot of people know I was in a cut in the beginning of our when we started the podcast, but I'm bulking again. I will say that bulking is worse for me now. I was locked in for this cut, and bulking, I don't really like it. It messes up my mental sometimes. The body dysmorphia, all that. So it comes with it, but other than that, it's been consistent.
Yeah, body dysmorphia is a real thing, especially when you're into fitness, man. Shit, like the slightest alteration, you be like, nope, I'm too big, too small.
Literally.
Your clothes don't ever fit the way you want them, but someone's either way you cutting, it's got way too much room to where now you can't go down the size, or if you gain a little weight, it's always in the wrong place and your thighs too big, but then you got so yeah, body dysmorphia amongst people who are into fitness is a real thing. Or it's like, I always use a joke that fitness is like a drug, because I literally, even if I'm tired, I still have to go to the gym most days, because it's like if I don't and I go home, let's say it's a rest day, I'll be at home just thinking about, man, I could have gone and did something. And that's how you know that you have a true like drug relation to the gym. But
right. Yeah, I think for me that's where it is. Like, I'm used to being in the gym for like 2 hours and a half to 3.
yeah,
And it's kind of went down to 2 to like an hour and a half. I'm like, let me get back in, but I'm like so gassed in my workouts. I'm like, dang, I gained about 15 pounds back right now, and I'm like, whew. So it's just something to get adjusted to. But like you say, any change slightly in your clothes, your look, it messes you up. So, but other than that, everything is going good.
yeah, for sure. So another society. First of all, before we get into the content, obviously we appreciate all y'all in the family. London and I were growing, and we continue to appreciate all you guys who listen to us, share us, talk about us, talk to us, in the gym or wherever you guys may see us out in the community. It really keeps us going, keeps us motivated to keep bringing the gems to y'all. All we ask is that you continue following the movement by subscribing to the YouTube, subscribing to us on all your listening platforms, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, giving us 5-star rating there and help boost us in the algorithm, so that way we can share the gems to the culture. All right, so another societal aspect and topic to discuss this week. I guess where this all comes from is just, there's this growing sentiment in our culture of like everything or all things in life can be attributed to things being equitable, not equal, but equitable. So just on that term, or on that statement alone, what do you think, El?
Just like meaning like fair, in a sense.
Not fair, because fair is different than equitable. I would say equitable means that people are able to get a good deal, or a deal that they deem is helpful for themselves. I mean, so like the reason why I don't say equal is because equal assumes that everybody gets the same treatment. The fact of the matter is, not everybody gets treated the same. Not everybody does get equal treatment, equal pay, equal responsibility. But equitable, where you feel like you're getting enough where you can you can feel good about the situation, if you get where I'm drifting.
Yeah. Kind of see like how people kind of see if it's equitable in life. I think everybody has an agenda in life. It's just depends how that person displays that to kind of manage that in the world of this society. So for me, example is, I feel like it's hard to because I feel like my definition of it is just like not to be equal, but at the same time, it's basically you're saying how can they get something at the in one end and kind of come out of it successful.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah,
like, prime example, right? You're an energy tech, and you started off, when you first began, you talked about you were
right.
starting off making 50K. Then after you gained some experience, you got somewhere, you were able to get to the next step, or the next step you were able to negotiate for yourself, where you were able to argue 80K salary, and then you are where you are now. And it's the same thing. I started off differently. I was in education, got my first job. I made what I made there, then got to the second job where now I transitioned into education, and I was able to negotiate, for myself what I deemed was a fair. So I guess it's more so not about equal, but about fair enough to the point where people feel good about the situation that they're in. That's where I'm getting at when I say people want
Okay.
an equitable outcome for themselves.
Right. Yeah, just kind of wrap up a little bit of just saying like that. Like, I think you have to kind of display the room of what audience you're in. If you're in the work industry, if you're in the fitness industry, if you're in the food business industry, whatever industry you're in, you kind of have to negotiate and kind of play out who you're speaking with, because that's going to be a play of getting what they want and getting kind of what you want to at the end to kind of come out at the top. But at the same time, when you kind of get good at it, you kind of want a sense of putting them into the point and being transparent with that person of whoever you're talking to or whoever you're trying to get like done deal. If you're trying to close a deal, if you're trying to make sure your students hear you or something, you have to how you build rapport with your students and kind of tell them that you're trying to do it for them. And the end, you got your results of making them be kind of listen to you and listen to Coach Obi and make sure they get the best results. But it took you to kind of learn your students in that room and say the proper displays, like the words to display for them to kind of comprehend what you're doing. So to me, it varies of who you're speaking with and kind of how you kind of have to finagle it and kind of how you have to use your words and choice of words. Maybe you can kind of give a deeper insight of it, but that's kind of how I look at it with it.
Yeah, so I mean that goes, I guess, perfect segue into the first topic. Then people wanting to have an equitable deal in terms of career and things of that nature. So I guess where I look at it from that perspective is that, like me being a teacher now, right? Different school districts offer different salaries and different pay, and a lot of it is largely based on your prior experience, right? So, for example, if you look at a teacher's salary, most of it is the longer you've been a teacher, the more of a stipend you get increase like per year. You have that aspect. And then different school districts offer different base salaries. Then they offer different stipends based on whether you coach, whether you're a head of an organization, right? So the more responsibility you take on, the more you make, right? So for each teacher, it goes to their whole threshold of, okay, do I think that I'm getting compensated fairly for what I'm doing? And do I like the situation that I find myself in, right? I remember when I was looking at getting getting into it. Remember HISD, for example, they were offering higher base salaries for a lot of teachers there because they had a shortage, one. And then HISD is also part of Houston that has a lot of struggling communities. Kids there have a lot going on, and so then teachers automatically leave there because they can't handle the stress and the threshold. So for there, it's like you have to give more in order to get people to be bought in, as opposed to a school district like where I work at, Alvin, or even Pearland, Fort Bend, things of that nature. Their families are a little bit well off, so you're gonna deal with less. Then they have more resources available, right? So you can afford to first off pay teachers more. Then on top of like the other stipends they may get, they don't get as much because they get a lot of it on the front end. So I think for me, it just goes to being able for each individual to assess each situation and decide, okay, is this enough here that I'm getting for me to be okay and bought into this, or do I want more? And if I want more, do I feel comfortable taking on these extra roles and responsibilities?
Right.
From my perspective.
Yeah, and like you said, it's getting them to know your value, and it's getting them to know that you need me just as bad as I need you. And like you said, a lot of people don't want to go over there to HSISD because just because this might be more for the person. They might not want to be able to take on all that responsibility for the kids being bad, this and this, or just whatever it goes down. So by you knowing that, you can go into the interview and kind of present to yourself why it's fair, why I should get this type of salary or this and this, and it could come out in your favor of like, okay, this person knows his worth. this person knows the price value for this role, and it will come out in your benefit at the end.
Mhm. Nah, yeah, absolutely. And then, I think on top of that, it's also like just understanding that I think you brought up something actually, knowing your worth and people not settling. I would argue that that's really the sticking point for a lot of these conversations. Is that do you think people overestimate their worth in the beginning? Like, for example, someone who is fresh out, doesn't have a whole lot of experience, but they're telling themselves, I know my worth, therefore I'm not going to settle for anything less than whatever value they want. And then on the flip side, an organization may look at that person and say, you have no experience, you have no background, you have no certification, so therefore we feel like this is what is fair. What do you think of that whole conversation where it's sort of a back and forth? Because I think that's a lot of where things end up not being made. You see that not only in job, you don't see that not only in career, but in politics and everywhere else, where it's my way or no way. What do you think about that?
Funny you said that. I think in this generation, and I can speak on it for me personally. I think I overplayed my hand coming out of college, not having that many internships and not having that experience. But I held myself to the standard of I know my worth. In reality, when it wasn't working, I had to humble myself and go backwards and say, let's start from the ground up. This is not happening. Let's go to an entry level role, learn some more about it, because maybe you don't know just as much as you think you know. I learned more about my career, my profession, and then over time, um, I interviewed around and I got a raise in my other old position. And I'm currently in my current position where I can see myself at a long time, here for a long time. But my point is, I think we in this generation see the people who are, like you said, it goes back to the materialistic stuff. We see people with the goals of you want to have the house, you want to have the car, you want to have this at 25 or 26. Not everybody can get that fast. It life really doesn't really start for some people till like the 30s, and like that's when things are really together. But as us seeing it at such a young age with social media and have the platform to kind of see other people do it, you kind of want to speed up your process. And that's kind of what you have to talk with yourself daily and kind of drill yourself back and say, you know what, I haven't done everything that I'm supposed to do to even be here, so why can I expect them to want me in this position if I don't know every concrete answer and a thorough answer when they ask me in the interview? Or if I'm not presenting myself with the best body in this, how do I say I want it if I'm not doing the right steps? So for me, it was just something that you have to sit back on yourself and kind of ask yourself, are you just speaking, or are you just actually thinking you know you have this ability to do it and you're just halfway doing it? So I have to give my full 100% effort and say, well, at least if I put the chips all in, at least put my all effort in, I know what I'm saying is true versus just talking.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just to expand on that, because this is really the part about like jobs that is really interesting and important to both of us going through it in this time. I think one thing you talked about was kind of just the journey and the metamorphosis. You talk about most people don't start hitting their stride until 30. Well, I think there's a reason behind that people don't talk about. It's like when you're 23, you're fresh out, you don't know anything. It's like being a rookie in the NBA. A lot of professional sports you can kind of attribute to like real life, real career. You know, when you're new, when you're a rookie, you just don't know as much because you don't have the experience, right? So that's where having good vets, having a good organization to teach you, you naturally are able to develop and mature, right? It's the same thing with being in a career where you're young, you're fresh out, you're brand new. Like me, being a teacher is my first year. And so because of that, I luckily have a great support system around me where I have an IC who's real supportive. I have other coaches who've been around for a long time. And so then I naturally lean on them and ask questions, right? Whether it annoys them or not, it's like, I know I don't know everything. So it's on me to ask questions, right? That also means you have to start off humbly. That doesn't mean you're selling yourself short. It just means that everybody has to start somewhere. Most people who are new to something have to start at the bottom and work their way up. Now, where I am of a different mindset, or I guess where the generational like shift in mentality is, I also don't blame people for if they find a better opportunity somewhere else and they go for it, then I don't blame them for that. And I think that's the part where, you know, maybe there's a disconnect right there. Some people who would argue, no, you should stay and just fight it out with that current company you're with, eat shit, you know, for that time until you make it. The others would say, if you find another opportunity somewhere else and they're willing to pay you some more, then go there. And I think that's fine. That's smart. Like, okay, I got my little entry here. I learned what I need to learn. Okay, now this other company sees my work, sees my value. They're willing to pay me more. They're willing to compensate me a little bit better. So then I can go there. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's how people should kind of leverage themselves of saying, look, I can stay with y'all and y'all can pay me some more. I can go over here. You know what I'm saying? And always be hedging your bets, because at the end of the day, that's what people have to look out for themselves, don't they? So I think that's where society is right now.
Yeah, I agree. You just gotta to kind of wrap it up with that topic. I think you just have to like know your worth, and if don't go too far over, don't go too far under, and be realistic. So
Yeah. Now this goes to a realm. This next part goes to a part that you and I kind of are dabbling in a little bit more, especially yourself with the whole fitness thing, but just making deals in business. So you're in energy tech sales. So you're in sales. So talk about having an equitable deal in terms of a business deal and what that has looked like for you in your career and also in fitness for you.
for me, I can use my role right now. Right now, I don't have all of my accounts, but just talking to like key decision makers or somebody who makes the deal, sign the contracts, or if you're in a fitness, whatever, you have to go to the table knowing what they want. And if you know what they want and you know their needs, having a basic conversation. I think people make sales a lot harder than what it is.
Mhm.
But the people who are good at it, they're just good at holding a conversation. Some of these contracts can be off of relationships. They might have known that person for 8 to 10 years, maybe 15 years. So they trust that person. They might give them the business. Even if the pricing, even if what they're asking for the pricing might be a little bit higher, they might go with that person strictly off relationships. Two, it could be off of just pricing, off of you gave me the best rate, you gave me the best price for our company, I'm gonna sign this. And then three could be how do you display your product that you're selling? And if you display your product that you're selling that's right, that person might can buy into it and see that you can bring significant value into their operations and see that how you can help them. As far as the fitness side of it, I haven't had too many like not altercation. I would say I've had too many conversations with business owners or people who've owned things, but like to negotiate it, it was more of like, here's a code, this is basically what you get. But I
Mhm.
can assume that maybe when you talk to somebody on that level, you might can negotiate different things as far as in how much you get per post or that, and that's kind of where you can use your sales tactic. But for me, I think it's just all about being transparent and being honest with that person, because that person is going to say, well, this guy isn't a liar, he's laying everything on the table, he's not lying, he's not trying to finesse me in a deal, and he's trying to be as honest as he can. And that for me, he won the business from that. So that's how I've started off in sales, and just been transparent and just been honest about things.
I have a question. Do
Right.
you think it's more important for you to sell yourself in a business deal, or for your client to understand or to think that you're bought into them and making that deal work, in your opinion?
What was the first question? We broke
Do
up.
you think it's more important to sell yourself in a business deal? In other words, get people to be bought into you. Talk about having good conversations and just having that skill of being able to communicate. So do you think it's more important to be able to sell yourself in a business deal? Or do you think it's more important to have your client understand that you're bought into them and that you're listening and that you're paying attention to what they want?
It's going to be everything, but I would say listening to what they want will be more of the priority. But like at the same time, what can really win that over will be you building that rapport. If we come into a Teams meeting and before we have a presentation, kind of speak about something, where you at located or where you're at this, and then kind of build that relationship. And then you kind of have to see how that person reacts. He might be or she might be super dry. She don't really want to talk. Okay, figure out what different rapport you can take to open that person up. Because once somebody opens up, everybody speaks. So once that person opens up, let them speak. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you thoroughly know your product and you know how to, most importantly, not know your product, but explain how your product can help their operations or their company. Because you can know your product all you want, but explain how you can implement your product into their operations and help them save money and make money. And that's how all that goes.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's a good breakdown. I guess for me, like I started learning sales in terms of me doing this fragrance stuff, even though it's a hobby of mine and I'm not
Right.
really trying to fully sell fragrances, yet it's still the idea of being able to develop a skill and do your homework and be well versed and more knowledgeable as far as what you're talking about. So whenever I do approach people, because that's part of it now, as I go approach women or whomever, and I try to, get them to review the fragrance. And then whenever they ask me like, okay, well, why should I get this fragrance versus that fragrance? Or, why do you like this one versus that one? What got you into fragrances? Like all those questions that people might have to ask, being able to answer them confidently because you did your homework and you understand your background, and then being able to sell either the product or the vision of what you're talking about. I always say I'm of the mindset that fragrance creates opportunity. So when you're buying a fragrance, when you're getting a fragrance, whether it's from me or whomever, you're creating opportunity, you're spraying opportunity onto yourself. That's my like sort of theme pitch, if you will. And why I say that is because for me, who was an introvert largely, the way that I was able to express myself was through fragrance, right? Through being able to smell good. That's your first impression on the world. And so from there, naturally, people are like, okay, well, now they're intrigued. And then from being intrigued, now you start opening conversations. You let your guard down, people let their guard down. And then from there, you're able to kind of sell them at whatever because you set a good first impression. And then you're able to talk about what you want to, confidently. So that I think selling and sales and business is all about being able to be well versed, doing your homework, and understanding who it is that you're speaking to and what you bring to the table.
And, it's okay not to know a question. I think a
Mm.
lot of people feel like every time they get called upon, they should know a question. You shouldn't. We're human. We don't know everything. And that's for me. My typical thing is that's a good question. That's my quote. That's a good question. If I don't know it, let me get back to you at the end of today, with that answer, and I can send you over email, kind of explaining what you asked me. Because like you said, and not everybody knows everything. So, and I think
Mhm.
that's the downfall. Sometimes people think they know, they might not know everything, but somebody might ask them a question. They're like, shh, like I should be able to know that. And they might just say something random and that person might go look it up and it was completely wrong. Okay, now his credibility is completely shot. So
Mm.
just be honest and keep it transparent, and then you should be able to be good.
Yeah, no, that ability to be transparent is, very, very important because, like you talked about, if you at least are upfront, even if you don't know anything, and you are honest about, hey, that's a good question. Let me get back with you so I can make sure that I give you the proper response in a timely manner. Then okay, then that builds that trust as opposed to you trying to, kind of lie your way or BS your way through it. And then it's like, oh wait, this person's full of it. Now your credibility is shot and your optics are shot, from that point on. So I like that point. All
Yeah.
right. So I want to talk about the impacts of an unfair business deal. So like you talked about the good sides of it, but let's talk about when you approach a situation where you may be in a business deal that you deem unfair, or maybe your colleagues deem unfair. How do you navigate that as a means of not breaking that relationship, but also being able to negotiate what you want?
It's hard to not break that relationship once you are in contract with somebody and they're not providing the service that you guys agreed upon. Um, in the corporate world, that's when you have to get legal involved, and that's why you have lawyers, and that's why you have all these things. And depending on what corporation you're in, um, I don't really handle too much of the contract after that point of when it can get into the lawyer's hands. But pretty much, I can just sum up to you. I'll say 85% of relationships are going to get down the drain if one side of the party doesn't fulfill their services. Like for example, in my last role, we did a partnership with the retail provider. They weren't as engaged of selling for us as they said they were in the contract, and they weren't just bringing us business. And that's when we kind of lost a lot of stuff with them, and we kind of kept falling out because we needed things to get processed, and then we'll send them emails. They wouldn't get back with us for like a day or two, and then it just was slow. So for that point, that's when you get your higher ups involved, and that's when they go into it and kind of handle that. But like I said, it's just a hassle. You kind of lose credibility, and depending on what industry you're in, you might end up working with that person at a different role, and then it can get ugly there, and then it can just keep going. So for me, I've never seen it ending well, but I'm sure there's stories that can. Maybe on the teacher side, maybe you can, but like I don't know how, if you guys do as much deals like things like that, but like you can make a deal with the kid, for example, to make sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to do, and you kind of make it a game for them. And over time, if that kid keeps lying to you, or if that teacher keeps lying to you, you can see why a person will stop believing in that, and that person will lose credibility. Like you can lose credibility from a kid, or a kid can lose credibility for you, because you guys looked each other in the eye and said after class and said, I get it, you're messing up class, you're causing disruptions to class, and you're not paying attention, but let me make you a deal, let me do this, and if we stay on the same path, I promise you I'll get you here. And if they keep acting out, or you did not perform as a teacher, then one of you guys could look at each other and be like, well, you kind of broke that trust, and you kind of broke that, like, I believed in what you said to me and it's not true. So now it's like, I'm not really rocking with you no more, kind of sense.
Yeah, and I like our dynamic and how you're in corporate America and I'm in more so of a service education role, right? And having our perspective from our perspective industries. I would say from a so like my first job in public health, main thing that'll cause people like dissension is not necessarily a bad deal, but it's whenever people start trying to infringe either on your work-life balance, or they try to give you more tasks but still try to pay you the same rate, right? So for example, you establish that, okay, this is what your duties are, this is what they're going to remain to be, right? But then you get cross-trained. Okay, now I want to train you to take on this role, but we're still going to pay you for only one role. That's where people start to be like, and start to raise an eyebrow. And then that's where morale of the staff can start to be harmed, right? You're paying me for one thing, but you're training me to be able to take on the role of three things, right? It's like if you were only hired to be like an entry-level position, but then your higher up start making you take on responsibilities of a team lead or a manager, but they still want to only pay you as an entry-level position. That's where it kind of gets muddy in that perspective. Then you talked about being a teacher and having deals with students. My main thing, we have this with our athletes of life. Okay, the deal being an athlete and us being your coaches is that the teachers who you guys have in class largely look at us as your sort of representatives and your liaisons whenever you guys act up. So when you guys act up, they're going to come to us because they expect us to be able to manage you guys, right? So they'll come to me and be like, hey, this person is acting up in my classroom. Can you handle it? Fine, right? And so then I'll pull them out of classes where, I get called, hey, can you go deal with this kid, right? Then when it gets to now maybe a kid acts up at practice, where it's us watching them instead of the teachers. Right. Then that's where we'll come to them and be like, listen, if you guys want to BS us and take advantage of us, then when your teachers say you guys shouldn't be playing, we're not going to be as likely to come to y'all's defense. That's where the whole accountability piece comes into play, right? I explained that to, little bro that I was talking about, where it's like, look, they're trying to help you. And at the end of the day, if they could have it their way, you guys wouldn't be playing anymore. So you guys have to understand that there's something you guys have to lose. And people are going to go for that because they know that's the way they can get at you, right? But here I am trying to be a liaison, or be a middleman where I could say, hey, I'll take care of it. I'll tell you what you need to do, and then it's on you to fix it. If you don't want to fix it, you're not only betraying me, but you're betraying yourself and you're betraying the teacher's trust. And naturally, you deal with more consequences that way, because now you don't have nobody to save you. Like, that's the main thing. If I don't say nothing else to them, I always say, Coach Obi's not going to be here to save you every time you get into it with somebody. So eventually, you have to learn how to take the onus on yourself and not get so much into your pride where you have to respond every time someone offends. Yes, you're allowed to have opinions. You're allowed to be angry at stuff, but don't let that cause you more strife down the line. That's the way I kind of look at, managing deals and expectations with kids. It's like, look, at the end of the day, consequences come in all forms, and there's always going to be consequences with everything you do. Consequences aren't always a bad thing, right? There are good consequences. You do right, you're rewarded for it. But most of the time we look at only the negatives, and the negatives come when you don't do what you're supposed to do, especially when you've already been told numerous times what to do.
That was well put in your type of side of it. Yeah, it just depends on how you look at it. Every description, every way that you put it, it can be put a different way. But I think for our careers, I think those are the best perfect ways how we can put it. So
yeah, for sure. All right. So to the next aspect of it all, we got the dating and relationship aspect of, people wanting that equity. So just when you talk about people wanting an equitable deal in dating relationships, what do you think of, El?
For me, I think for that definition of equitable, I think that's when that comes into like fair for me. And if you look at it from like a dating and relationship standpoint of it for this one, even though we've been kind of hammering on like the work career and how you can look at it from a teacher versus me in sales. But for me, for equitable in this situation, I look at it as like fair. If you're what I've learned being in a relationship is kind of like you have to, regardless of if you think that you're right or wrong, there's things that you have to kind of put to the table and say what's right and what's wrong. And if you do this better or I do this better, this is how we can handle it going forward. But we can't keep blowing up or we can't keep fighting or keep doing this for little things. So just whatever you have a disagreement about, you have to come to a conclusion of was this fair, was this not fair, and how do you kind of resolve that issue and so it can like alleviate more situation from this coming on from future things. I think that's the only way I can kind of put it for this. But just kind of understand that person so you can to that get that result that you're looking for, and that's just success in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I could pose it in a different way, it kind of the way people see it is that I observe it, it goes to, if I do this, then I expect my partner to be able to do this, right? Not necessarily is it fair, but it's like if I'm doing, okay, we've talked about this before, right? A lot of it is in order for it to be equitable, then there have to be conditions met, right? So, for a guy, in order for me to provide, and then he's going to want this from a woman. In order for a woman, in order for her to, whatever the case may be, cook, be feminine, all those like traditionally gender specific roles, now there has to be conditions met. That's the way that I've noticed modern society kind of put the spin on it. In order for it to be fair, I have to have this met that way in order for me to give this, right? Now, is that right or wrong? That goes to the person, right? But that's just the way that I see in society kind of take on it, rather than saying, what I've always believed is that you have to just have empathy for your partner. And I brought that word up before. That's how I was taught. It's not about having your way or no way, but like, okay, if we have a relationship, you automatically can't be as selfish as you once were when you're single. You can't go into a relationship with a single mindset because by definition, you're in an agreement with somebody else to be able to give, which means you also, and through giving, you're receiving, right? And I think if more people were to try to get back to that way of thinking, I could be wrong, but I think more healthy relationships could be had. When I look at people who do have successful, healthy relationships, it's because there's a level of deference and respect to their partner where they don't even think about, well, I do this because my partner does this. They do this because it's the right thing to do, in my opinion.
I think that's kind of how you got to look at it. It's to kind of see you have to sacrifice some things than you were in a relationship. You can't always have, well, this is how I used to do it, or this is how I used to do it. You're never going to get a successful relationship by going into it and kind of being selfish in a way. That's the only way you can be with somebody for 365 days of the year and try to make it 40 or 50 years, because it's like, that person's never going to be you. And regardless of you saying you love them or you saying you're going to marry them, y'all gonna get annoyed at each other. Y'all gonna get mad at each other. Y'all gonna think y'all want to rip each other's heads off. But at the end of the day, it's how you guys circle back and kind of finish off. And I think that's kind of how you gotta look at it for this topic of just being equitable in like relationships or dating.
Maybe I'm being cynical, but I always look at, okay, well, I always can see people's counter arguments to what you're saying. So what would you say to the person who says, me compromising, me, I think you used the word, what word you use, but bottom line, people giving, right? People being able to come to the middle, right? That means that they feel like they're settling, right? They're settling for less. They're settling for less than what they deserve. What do you tell the people, especially yourself being in a relationship? Because it's easier for me to say being a single guy, but I'm asking for you who's in it right now. To those single people who say, I feel like I can't do that because that means I'm settling for less, what do you tell them?
Look at the bigger picture. Right now, you might have to step back and lose that battle.
Mhm.
Like for me, I'm a big high head. I like proving points. But what that helped me in my relationship was not every argument that I try to just defend myself, even though I know I'm right in this situation. If
Mhm.
I feel that I'm right and not argue that every time, it might make your significant other shut down, or it might make your person that you're doing, and then you might know that they might need more than you can handle. So you have to read that person you with, and vice versa if it's a woman or a male. So it's like that's kind of how I looked at it, and that's kind of like maturity is like just stop blowing up, stop saying everything that you think that comes to your head, because if you say everything that comes to your head, you're gonna be single, and
Mhm.
there's not too many of those that a woman or man can keep taking just by just hearing that. Like, is this how you really feel, or are you just saying this out of just anger? So
Right.
um it comes with growth. Don't just say everything. Lose some battles. It's not a who wins um relationship. It's not about, oh, I won this or who's first. So it's about y'all making it to the end. So that's kind of how you gotta look at it. You don't look at it like, oh, I'm losing this battle, so I'm a simp, or I'm losing this, so she ain't gonna respect me. You gotta word it right. Everything you do is about wording.
Mm. No, you made a great point with that. I love that. That it's not like I see. That's the one thing about like, even when people ask me or tell me stuff like it's like, why does it have to be a battle? Like just because you guys disagree about something doesn't mean it has to be a battle that you win or lose. It's as a relationship, you're gonna have things that you disagree on. I mean, we're all unique individuals. So, okay, you disagree about that now. Okay, why? Right? And then if one person, if one point person's point makes sense, or if you decide, okay, this isn't something that we need to go back and forth on, just for our sanity, that doesn't mean that you lost. It just means that that wasn't that big of a deal, right? That's not the end all be all. It's not going to make or break your relationship. It's just being able to like you talk about people shutting down whenever they don't like hearing something. It's like that to me is immature and kind of petty. Like, I mean, again, if your partner's talking to you, you don't shut them on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All that little stuff of if it doesn't go my way, then I'm gonna be like a child and just stomp off, or people do things like the blow up. Like I've seen that done. I'm like, see, you can't take those words back. Like if, for example, if you were in your relationship, or if I was in a relationship and then somebody decides, oh, in the heat of the moment, I called someone out their name, or they call someone out your, you know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
like now you can say sorry all you want to, but the fact is you did it. You
You
know what I'm
did it.
saying? And you
It's
can't
like
take it
you kind
back.
of, yeah. It's kind of look at it as like you might not can take back something you say, and that's kind of what makes me look at it a little different now. It's like beginning me, I was a hothead, and now I'm kind of simmering down, and I just know everything I say can affect that person you're with. So it's not always a good thing to say everything.
Yeah, I see. My problem was I was too mild mannered. People would argue like I was too calm because I didn't feel like I don't argue with people, and so people are like, you don't have enough like emotion. You don't get angry.
Yeah, that can really, but that's good. I like that because in a sense, it's like I can never get this man rattled. And for a lot of women, I feel like a lot of women can like contest to this. They'll say basically, if you can't blow up on them, like if a man never blows up on you, that might make her want to just keep acting out though, to see if she can get a reaction out of you.
Mm.
And if she can't, if she does, she gonna feel accomplished. She might go back and laugh, like not laugh, but like just kind of like I did it. Like I kind of got him rattled, and I know he cares now. And it's
Nah,
like, what is your point of trying to do that?
the way
So
I
for
the way
me,
I respond to that, I'm like, it's like, what's that word? I'm just like, you are the weakest link. Goodbye, and I keep moving. Like I'm not gonna, no, you're not gonna get in my head. So that's just the way I'm wired. Like I don't yell because yelling doesn't make me feel better. One, and to me that doesn't solve anything. Me blowing up, right? If you think that the best way to get at me is to disrespect, okay, hey, jokes on you. You're out of here, and that's it. Because giving them that rural, just blunt reaction, it's like they're okay. Well, I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, you did, and that's okay. Keep moving.
he
and,
said, "Yeah, you did,"
and have
but
a
it's
blessed
okay.
day. And that's it. So I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know. I'm of the school of thought that like it's not worth the energy, it's not worth the headache, the stress, the blood pressure to go back and forth, especially when it's with someone who's temper headed. You know what I'm saying? Now if it's something that really truly bothered my partner, if it was one of those things that and like she like gets emotional about it, just like out of like she's upset, that's one thing. But if it's you ain't shit and you blah blah blah, like nah. And you gonna come back to earth and address me like an adult, or you can skedaddle, and that's just what it is. That's just how, I don't know.
That's the part that gets women. You can leave. But
Yeah.
like that's also a thing you gotta learn, especially like you're trying to build something.
Hmm.
You can't just throw that like you can leave or this can be done or this can. That's something I struggle with. So it's like you got to sit down and be like, shut up, Lanier, shut up, Obi. Don't say too much because you might want this person back. It's just about wording, like I said.
Yeah, and I mean, like, at the end of the day, like everybody has their style. Like some people might say my style is a little too calm, a little too passive. Even people feel like the only way to get your point across is to put your foot down and yeah. I'm like, by all means, and sometimes it is necessary, but you can't be emotional all the time. You can't be calm all the time. It's all about having balance at the end of the day. But the most important thing, as far as going back to the main point, is just making sure that you have respect and deference to the point where you don't have to get into a shouting match with your partner. You can just be able to be calm, be rational, and be able to work through things whenever they arise. And with that, makes your relationship strong because you guys are able to go through things, tackle things, and then overcome them. That overcoming obstacles makes a bond stronger, in my opinion.
100%.
All right. But then all this, we talked about people wanting equitable deals. The fact that society kind of runs this way, is that wrong, do you think? Or do you think
It's
there's
not wrong. It's not wrong, but it's genetically so wired in our brain. I think it's a bunch of people in this world now is about, you hear a lot of people like, don't try to finesse me. Don't try to play me.
Mm.
And it's like, I think a lot of people have their defense up. And it's like, you don't have to have your defense up if you know what somebody's about. Like if you just learn how to read people, a lot of people will tell you what they plan on doing by just listening. So not too many people will not telling themselves if you just sit back and listen. So for me, I think it's not a bad thing that society's like that. It's going to get us more money, but it's also going to get us a lot of just heartbreaks probably. But at the same time, it depends on what you like. I like it this way because I feel like you can having this mindset gets you a lot of money and wealth. But at the same time, if you have the mindset like me, you can kind of alleviate as much as like finessing or trying to get the best end of the stick as you can, by just listening and kind of trying to be transparent and just talk to people about things.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Well said. All right. So let's wrap this up. So if you had to put a final thought or a final quote on this week's episode, what do you think it would be, Al?
This was an interesting one. I didn't know how to come into this episode. Honestly, I was kind of thrown away, but I like how it turned out. But for me, what I would tell people is just start listening.
Mm.
A lot of people don't listen. A lot of people don't listen. A lot of people just want to talk, or a lot of people don't want to. A lot of people do hear, but they don't comprehend the full situation. So when it comes to career, comes to relationships, it comes to trying to get the better end of the stick or overvalue yourself or undervalue yourself, know what you have to offer before just saying something. And if you don't have something to offer good, then be realistic. Don't say, well, I should be working this senior level role and I just got out of college. Like it's not happening. Don't sit there and say, these kids should obey me. I'm a grown up. I'm not a grown up. And if they don't listen to me, then like what's going on? Like demand that respect. You're young, so they're going to look at you as a cool teacher, and you got to lay that force down. If you're in any different industry, you got to just be transparent and talk and kind of make your voice be heard and kind of build that credibility in yourself. If it's fitness, just make your body the best you can be and present yourself and remain humble, remain in your lane, and don't overdo it. That's kind of all I can say for that.
Yep, that's perfect. So that'll do it for this week's episode, y'all. We appreciate all of you guys listening, tune in. Again, we're closing in on 100 episodes. That's the goal for this
What
season.
number are we at?
92.
92, 8 away, y'all. So me and Obi got to do some more work. We got to get on our game a little more so we can get y'all these visuals in the studio. So once we get that going, like I told you, I think the sky's the limit.
For sure. And then we'll bring more guests on for y'all. Know people have been clamoring for that. People asking me to come on. I'm sure they're asking you to come on. So we got that lined up. And once we get a studio, we get all the visuals, then it's on and popping for us. But You know, like we always say, we appreciate all you guys listening to and again tapping with us on Instagram. You can follow and subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can also follow us on all your listening platforms. Again, Spotify, catch us on Anchor, catch us on Apple Podcasts, any other place that you listen to podcasts and share the movement. Once again, it's Mike Obi.
Your boy London Ogletree. Follow me on IG, London_Ogletree. Any other platforms that we might have that we present. Just want to say thank y'all for kind of having us grow and YouTube grow and everything else grow. So just keep supporting us and we'll keep going and try to get to the top for y'all.
Most definitely. We'll catch up next week. We're out.
Feet on the ground with a proof you wrong mindset. I'd rather go out on my sword than have my mind tapped. The ones with eyes can never see, I make the blind clap. I'm bringing back that type of sound that once divine rap, homie. Yeah.